And welcome once again. I'm the database guy. I'm glad you've joined me. Please like and subscribe. Again, this is all free for you. I want to get you as much information as I can as a developer, as you can become as a developer of Microsoft Access database solutions with either an Access backend or a SQL Server backend, whichever is your pleasure. Today's one here is we're in the 5th video. We've finished with tables, sort of. You always go back to these things when you want to mention things, but for the majority of stuff, you finish with that. Then we're going to go to queries right now. This is the 5th one here. We're in queries right here. And what are queries used for? Well, queries are a source for a form or report. That's one of the major things you can use them for. As you saw in our example database, right? I'm going to just go back to this one here, and I'm going to go to a form. Let's see. I don't know if it's in here, is it? No. Okay. But I remember in one of our, let's see, let's get rid of these forms for a minute. Let's delete all of them. Whoops, let's close it again. All right, folks. So we hit delete and we say yes, delete all the objects, we're gone. So for example, let me just see if I have the right database open here, and I do. Okay, query books, query authors. So let's go to forms. We're going to create a form. And let's see, form design. And what we're going to do here is we're going to bring in, go under properties, this little square you see here. Again, under properties, so sort of close it now if I hit it a second time all over. And the record source here, so we could use a query as a record source. Now, you recall that you can open the query in the query builder and do things with it if you wish, and then close it. You always can modify it as you do a query when you hit the little ellipsis here to modify it. Close that sheet right here. And so you could do whatever you needed to do in here, save it, or do a save as to another query up here if you wanted to. The other possibility, and again, I'm not going to do it until we get to forms. Let's go to design view again, and is that besides having a query as a source, you can have an actual select statement. We're going to get into that in a moment, what that is. So, for example, under query authors, we are going to view it as, right. So in other words, I could have, I'm going to copy that. No, we're not going to save the changes. I could have had that here. And it's called a select statement, right? So if I were to hit my ellipsis here, I'd find it's the same exact query. And in any event, this query, and we're going to go back to our little presentation, is known as the first one here as select query. But anyway, in our, in our discussion here, we can use them, as we can use a query as the source of a form or even a report for that matter. All right, so how does that help you? Well, if you need information to populate a report, you can use a query. You can use that. Same thing for a report. Now, this being the case, you can modify queries, but you need VBA code to do that. In other words, when I say that, if you want to change the query programmatically so that your form will open up to whatever a user has selected as a field, let's say I wanted to select Italy as the country. I want to see everything in Italy, so I select Italy. I open up a form after that. and I have a certain type of query that's going to populate everything for Italy. I could change that if I wanted to. You'll see that later. It's not so important right now, but let's look at the select query and what it is. That's the one thing of it. It can be used by themselves, and we can use them to manipulate data, and you'll see here. So in the select query, I'm going to close my form here. I'm not going to save it. Let's take a look at what it is. We're going to come here under, and you don't have this available until you go into design view, and now you can switch between two, and you can run it too. If I run it from here, I will see that. And if I go to design view, I will see it here. And as I said, let's go to our SQL, which is structured query language. That's what SQL means. So what this is saying here, you're going to learn your first bit of SQL. It says select from table authors field AID and table authors field author. Select from those two fields. I'm sorry, select those two fields. Right, that's the first statement. So select table authors field authors ID and select table authors field author from table authors. A very simple statement, nothing dramatic, nothing crazy. All right, so we're going to go over here and go to our, and so if we go to our datasheet view, we're selecting these two fields from the table and we're populating them. Pretty simple and straightforward, right? Let's go to design view for a moment and let's go back here and let us sort the authors in ascending order. All right, so let's hit run. And of course, A through Z, you're going to have them in. And as you can see, we don't care about the AID, we care about that. But what I want to point to you is what happens here. We get an order statement, ordered by table authors field author. Now it doesn't say ascending or descending, right? So let's see what happens, just for giggles, if we change this to descending. And there we see it. So it's automatically assumed if you're ordering by table authors field author with nothing there, it's ascending, unless you have it as descending. Now let's write in here, and you can always change it in here, what would happen if we brought our ASC for ascending. Let's see if we can run that. And we certainly can, and it's the same thing. Let's look at our SQL view. It stays here, right? Let's go back to our design view and let us leave ascending as ascending, and let's run it, and let's go to SQL. And now you see we don't have anything indicating that's ascending. So what we know, first thing you know from Access is that when you order by ascending, there's nothing after it, although you could put it after it, what it is and what way. And if you change it to descending, okay, and we'll run it first, and then we'll go to SQL, you'll see descending. Now, I think you noticed something else that was there. How about let's see what not sorted does. Not sorted takes the sorting out. So we go to run it, and now we're sorting by AID, and of course, if we go to SQL, we have no sort. Do one more here for you. So we notice that you have a sort, right? The other one you might have would be a group by. And we're going to do, well, let's see if there's a group by right now. Don't confuse you. We run it, and nothing changes visually here, right? Nothing. But if I go to SQL, I get this group by, right? And it's not doing anything per se. Let us go back to design view and let's see something here. We're going to count up the number of authors. What happens when we run it? Well, we get 11111. It's counting how many, right? We go to SQL and we just have a group by authors field AID. But then you see up at the top here, the count. So it says here to select table authors field AID and count the table authors field author as count of author. If I come to my design view, you're not seeing any name on here per se. So what would happen if I tried sum? Don't think much is going to happen either way, but you can't. It's a data mismatch type because you can't do a sum across a what's a text, right? You can't do that. Let's do it over here and see what happens here. All right, so it's giving you the sum of, which really isn't doing anything either, and you'll have a sum now in front of the author ID. So I know I'm giving you a lot right now, but go back to design view. In this particular case, nothing's going to change because we don't have repetitive information. So group by, and other things of that nature are really not going to impact us. And let's bring the ascending back in and run it. And let's look at our SQL. So again, we can have a select statement. We can have from statement. So we're basically selecting the fields we want, these particular fields, and we're selecting them from the table, ordered by field authors, and so on. Now, let's go back to design view for a moment. Let us take books. Oh, that's query. I'm sorry, it's not table. I know I'm getting confused here. Let's go to the tables. Okay, so we're going to take book authors. We're going to put that in, and then we're going to put authors in. Right. We'll connect them with the AID. And what we're going to do, oh no, we have that already. I'm sorry, I'm getting confused here. We already have, so books, I want books. That's what I want. There we go. All right. So I'm going to bring a title in, a year. And that's enough. And we're going to run this so we can see what the books are. All right. Now here's something we're going to do here. We'll go to SQL, and as you can see here, now we're selecting all of those fields. So you look here, table authors, field author ID, table authors author, table books field title, and table books field year. Now, the from is a little interesting statement. From table books with an inner join on table authors, where it's inner joined to books authors on table field author ID, which is equal to the foreign key author ID. And then, of course, the other join is on table books field ISBN, which is equal to the foreign key of ISBN. So what we're showing is the join. It's a little bit complicated, all right, but it is there. Now, we're going to do one thing here. We're going to go back to our design view. I know I'm showing you a lot, but I'm going to take out this right now. I'm going to run this. Okay. What we see here, all right, is now we're seeing a couple of Herman Melvilles, a couple of Edgar Allan Poes, right? We're going to go back to design view, and we're going to try to group and see what happens. All right, we're going to run this, and nothing really happens. And it should be aware to you that nothing would happen. The title and the year, those are splitting up the data, okay? I'm going to close this and not save anything for a moment. We're going to go back to query authors, and we're going to open it up, and we should come back to what we had, and we do. Let us go to design view. All right, and this is the basic one that we showed. SQL, that's our select statement. Okay, now, I shut it down. Let's take out this for a minute. Oh, sorry. And we're going to run that. All right. And what you see here, all right, select and from. So you don't have to even group anything. Let me bring back the author ID for a minute to show you something. So the author ID here, because the authors are unique. Let me drag it over there. There we go. Actually run it. You only have those authors there, okay? So I'm going to just close this for a minute. No, we don't want to save it. We go to books, and here are all the books we see here. We don't have the author in there. And the book sub. Okay. So here, which is interesting. We're going to come back to our design view. I am going to uncheck these little buttons here. And what they do is they don't they leave the fields there, but they don't show the fields. Let's run it. All right. In other words, let's go back to our design view just to prove it to you. Those check buttons, by the way, which you need to know about, are whether or not you want to view those fields or not. Okay. We're going to put in a group by here. Let's see what happens. We're going to run it, and it won't group them. If you notice the Melvilles and the pose, it won't. Why? Because it still sees these fields here. In other words, those fields are still splitting the data. So when you need to group data, you've got to make sure fields aren't splitting it. All right, let's look at this SQL, by the way, while we're here. Wow, so it's a big select statement. We have all the fields we need. We have the inner join, and so on. We have an inner join on authors AID, an inner join on the ISBN, and the pub IDs. So it's a real big one here, and you can see all this data. Now let's see, it is updatable, so there's no problem there. We can update it. That's good. So the main takeaways here, no, we're not going to save that, is, let's go back to our authors again, is it in structured query language, right there it is. We have what we call the select statement. We know we're on a select, as you see up here. All right, make the query, select and display records from the database. That's what a select query does. And that's our first one, an introduction to it. And that's really interesting stuff. Now we're going to open up, let's see, this one here, right? We're going to go to design view. And this one here is a select query, as you can see. We're going to go to the next query type just for giggles here. And we're going to do it a make table. We got to call this table test. We're going to call it test. I'm hitting the Y. All right. And there we go. We're going to make, that's the table that's going to be created. And we're going to do, let's see if we can do a save by on this one. Can we? File, save as. No, we can't. Let's see. Query design. On the select one, actually, let me just close this for a minute. Query authors. Let's open up that one. Let's see if it's in SQL datasheet and design view. So usually there is a save as. I don't see it here, but and may not be in this. So anyway, let's go back anyhow and just go back to our make table. And we're going to call this one TBLTEST. All right, we're going to go OK to that. We're going to save it up here. And now you see what happened. We've got a new icon. The new icon has a table next to it, and it has an exclamation point. And let's see what happens. we're going to get this popping up. This is our warning. Now, when you write VBA code, you can avoid this warning, and you will want to, because you don't want your end user to see that. You're about to run a make table query that will modify data in your table. Well, in this case, we're going to create one. Are you sure? You say yes. Says you're about to paste 7 rows into a new table. You say yes. So we come over to our tables, and table test is indeed here. And look, we just made a table. So why would you use this for? What would you use this thing for? Well, I find that the make table query is good when I'm importing data from an outside source and I'm looking to compartmentalize that data, or I am looking to take a query to filter data that I need to see for comparison and bring it into a table just as a temporary type of a thing, or maybe, well, maybe as a table for reference. But as you can see here in our query, and let's get rid of this one. We don't need it. Goodbye it goes. As you can see here, it's going to make this table. So I'm going to run it again, and then I'm going to run it one more time just to show you something. So we ran it twice, and we pasted 7 rows twice. Well, actually, we didn't. We wrote over it. And that's the whole point of a make table query. When you run it, it's going to delete data that's in a table that exists, and it's going to write the new data, or append it, if you will, to that table, which is what it did. All right. So going back to our queries, that is your make table icon. Okay. Then we have append, right? Then we have an append query. So what we're going to do here, we're going to copy this one. I want to show you these things so that you can, we're going to call this query. By the way, I'm going to make this append data. And this one here, really, we're going to rewrite this one, rename this one, and it should be query make books or something like that today. Note that it's a make table query. Now, both of these are make table queries. We're going to go into design view on this one here. We're going to make it an append. And it's automatically bringing up the very last table that was set to it. We're going to leave it as that. I think we should. Now, let's see. We're going to then save this. And you see now the icon changed to a plus with our exclamation point. Now, if we want to know where this data is going, we can always right-click anywhere and go query type, and we'll see where it goes. Do it again for you, query type, click append, and there you have it. We know the table. Could be in a current database or another database. It's up to you how you want to use that. Let's go to properties for a minute. There's nothing in here under properties. Relationships, well, it'll open up the relationships table, obviously. And we can look at data sheet view. We can look at SQL view, show the table, which will show our tables here. That's what show table is. Let's do it again for you. It'll show the tables listed. And what else do we have here? I think that's it. Parameters is the other one. We have no parameters, and we're not going to talk about them right away. We're going to close this, by the way. We've already saved it. Well, actually, we've made some changes here. We're going to save it. Now, we're going to run this one, too. All right. And you're about to run an append query that will modify data in your table. Actually, you know what? I'm going to do something no right now. Let me go into design view for a moment. And, well, I can't change anything. So let me just leave it. I was going to, no, we can't, because what's happening is we're pulling data from one table and we're appending it to another, which is really what's happening. About to append 7 rows. What do you think is going to happen to that table test? You can guess it. Let's go into it and see it. How many do you think we have? 7 or 14? Yeah, 14. So it appended to the bottom the records you see here at the bottom, right? Some words of warning about append. Append will place data at the bottom. As you can see here, append doesn't care if you have duplicate data. All right, so how would you avoid that? Um, well, notice, if you will, that on table test here, ISBN was not a primary key. Okay, so what I'm going to do here, again, we didn't specify one, right? So what we're going to do here is this. I am going to delete these records. I am also going to go into design view, and we're going to specify that as a primary key. We're going to save it. Create duplicate values. Okay, so let me see what happened. Under data sheet, you must first save it. Yeah. So we've got to get that primary key out of there. I think we have an extra line we didn't take out. Let's see. Yeah. So let's see. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Oh, I see. Right over here. Let's make that 41. Okay. And let's put it in order. Right click here, sort A to Z, puts it in order, and save it. Okay. So let's go back into design view. Now, the reason for that is because if I go to that query again, let me go to the query. Let me go to design view, and you can always go to your data sheet view on the query, and here we have duplicates here, all right, with the Raven. I'm wondering why. So let me go into my table and see if there's a duplicate on the books. There isn't. Um, oh, I know why. I know why. It's because there's more than one author, I think. Yeah, so the Raven here has more than one author, right? We have 3 and 4. That's why, right? That's why. But anyway, my point here is to now we should be able to make this. Let's close this one and say yes. Let's go back to the table. Let's go to test again. Design view. And we're going to make that the primary key. Now we should be able to save it. And of course we can. Now, what do you think is going to happen if I run this append query? Think it'll work? Nah, it won't work. Shouldn't. And there you have it. It can't append them because you would violate the primary key. You'd have duplicates. Can't do it, right? Can't do it. So, let us go to the table. Let's delete my table here again. All right, and let us go to my query. Let's run the make table again. Let's take this step by step. Yes, we want it. Let us now go to our table, look at our test. So you can see here, we have the 2 duplicates of the Raven because we have 2 authors within that. And that's why those numbers duplicate. And now, if I run the query again to append, I should be able to do that without an issue. No problem. Coming back, and there you have it, 14 of them. Now, what does this tell you? It tells you that on a make table, it doesn't create a primary key, and there's a good reason why. You don't want, you're not setting up a table with all of its parameters. You're setting up a table, as I said, it's going to be a reference or for information or maybe a final table to sort that data out. You can see here, I have 4 entries with the same ISBN. Actually, I have 7 entries with the same ISBN. I should take that back. Duplicates are all in here, but I have, in one case, 4 of them are identical. All right, so your append query has some nuances. And the one is, when you use an append query, what you have to be careful of is not duplicating data. And usually it's pretty safe. You're going to see this in practice, and how it's going to work is that when I append data, all right, I am appending new data generally. You're dealing with a primary key to that table you're appending it to, okay? And just to be on that, just to add a little bit to it, you're not going to create duplicate data in that sense. Now, let's see something here under books. So, all right. So under books here, let's go to design view. We know we have a primary key, right? And it's not an auto number, right? You would have to create that. In other words, my point is, to append to a table of this type, you'd have to create unique ISBNs that don't duplicate and append to it. This is a little more involved, but you can do it and it's fine. Let me show you an easier approach. Here's table authors here, okay? Let me show you what happens. Now I'm going to get rid of, well, I'm going to leave table test. Let's create a table. Field author. That's it. We're not going to have, we're going to call this table test 2. I want to demonstrate something. There's no primary key. Do you want one? No, we don't need one. Table test 2, we're going to put in here John Smith, Jane Doe, Jack Jones, I don't know, Jennifer Jones. All right. Oops, sorry, I had to spell it the right way. All right, and here we go. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to go back to our queries. We are going to open up our append data query. We're going to wipe out everything we see here. And the way to do that, not that, is to select the table and just delete it. Whoops, not that. Come on. Select the table and just hit the delete button, and all the fields will go away. You'll watch them disappear, as you can see right up here. We're going to then show table. We're going to pick our table test 2 into that one, all right? And what we're going to do here is we're going to go to our query type. We're going to change the table to append to the authors table. I think you see where this is going. All right, so I'm just appending the author's name. That's it. That's all I'm doing. So now if I were to look at this under my data sheet, I'll see the names of what I'm going to append. I go to my, and I haven't shown you the sequel yet. We're going to talk about that in a minute. I'm going to close this and say yes. Now I'm going to run this. About to append 4 rows. Let's go back to our table, authors. Now you can see it magically added those 4 authors. Now you notice, because it's an auto ID, it wrote those numbers as it added each entry. You didn't have to. So if you were in books, for example, you would have to add both the ISBN number, and it couldn't be a duplicate, and the title, and the year, and the publisher, and so on to append. But here, I just have to append the data, not the auto ID. I wanted to demonstrate that to you so you could honestly really see this. All right. And that's cool. So that's good. Let's go back to the query for a minute, and let's look at, well, we're in, oh, come on, we should be in design view. There we go. Let's go into design view for a minute, right? Let's go into our SQL as we have. Okay. Now you're inserting into. That's what the append query is based upon in its sequel, insert into. So we're inserting into table authors the field author, and we're selecting from table test 2 the field author. We're selecting table test 2 field author from table test 2. So what we're saying is look at table test 2, look at the field table test 2 field author, and insert that data as field author into table authors. It's really simple and straightforward. All right. And in here, for example, now I don't, on this one here, you do have a group by. You can do group by if you wanted, and there is a sort, but it's almost meaningless. Okay, it's almost meaningless to use those because when you're appending data, it is going to go. I'm not changing anything, but we'll save it anyway. It is going to go, and as you saw, when it appends to the bottom. All right. So it's very interesting stuff. When you append, it'll always be after the data that currently exists. You want to be careful of that. But here's the thing. It doesn't really matter to you, the developer, because when you're adding data, where you place that data is meaningless. Now, even if it assigns an auto ID, it doesn't matter. All right, it doesn't matter. It just doesn't. Now, knowing that there's that many authors in there, let's go back to queries. All right, let's go to design view here. And actually, no, we're going to do this. We're going to copy and paste. We're going to put this as query books. Now it's going to come up as a make table query, but we're going to bring it back to a select. Now, if you come in here, you're not going to see anything under that because it's not going to recognize that. All right, but I want to run this. And as you know, the new authors won't appear. Why? They have no books assigned to them. That should be self-explanatory. We'll hit a yes on that. And as you see, the books went back to its original icon. So we've seen some interesting things here with select, make table, and append. I think at this point, we'll do one more. Actually, let me just put delete over here and change its location because that's in a better position. Okay. Let us do the update, and when we come back for our next, we'll finish out our queries. But the update query is interesting, right? What we would do would be this, okay? Let us take the authors here. We'll copy this for a minute, and we'll paste it. And we're going to call this query UPD authors. All right, and it's not an update query yet, as you probably are aware. We're going to go to the update here. And here's the thing. Now, on an update, right, in practice, generally what you do is you locate the primary key, in this case, the author's ID. It'll be on your graphic user interface in a hidden format. You won't see it, but you'll be referencing it as the criteria here, right? So in other words, in your form, it'll be some sort of control within your form that's populated, and that'll be the criteria of what you intend to update, and then all your fields that are changed will be here. All right, that's one way to do it. The other way is I do it with the temp tables. I'm not using, well, actually I am using, I take that back. You can do it one of two ways, but I like to use the auto ID or the primary key, because what I do is I copy that to my temp table, and then I use that. Well, I use that as the reference point to update. So in other words, what I'm doing is I'm saying, okay, I'm going to make a change to a record. And I've done multiple records. I've got a code for that too, and it's usually code. But what I would do is I would say, okay, I'm making changes to records in my temp table. I'm populating that primary key, that whatever the ID is, to my temp table, and the new form values as well. The new, field values as well. Here we don't necessarily need it. All right. I'm going to leave it. Okay. And you have an update too, and the criteria. What I'm going to do is put like. Like statement is a statement that will allow you to find records that have a certain criteria specified. We're going to say, quote, we're going to put our wildcard in, we're going to put a J in, we're going to put another wildcard, and we're going to place it. And so we're saying anything with a J. And what we're going to do is, we're not going to run this, we're going to go to datasheet view. Oh, has to have a destination field, I'm sorry. And we're going to say, Jonah Jameson, if you're a Spider-Man fan. So we're going to come to datasheet view, and look what it did. It found everything with a J, and it will update that. Now, maybe we don't want to do that. Maybe we want to be real specific. We go to design view here, and instead of like J, we just say John Smith. How many records you think will be shown? You guessed it. It's going to be just the one. So let's go to datasheet, and there it is. So now what we're going to do here, and I'm going to, instead of Jonah Jameson, we're going to put Jack Jones here. Well, actually, we would have duplicate entries, 2 authors, which, let's just say Jonah Jameson. You really have, again, these nuances with sorry, I need an H in there. Yeah. With Access, I could have 2 authors with the same name, but it's not preferable. Now, when your end user's in there and adding information, you will have validation ways of validating the data such that you will prevent that. Or if you want, you can not allow replicates in the author's name as well, but I wouldn't do that. I would control it more. So now if I go to datasheet, I'm going to see the 1 entry. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to save this. And when I do, notice the icon. The icon is a pencil, which is an edit, right, with an exclamation point. All right. So let us go to field authors, table's authors, by the way. I'm sorry, not field, but table. So we're looking to change this one here to a different name. Let's see what happens. Let's see if it'll work for us. Right, we're going to run 1, and we go yes. Now let's go and look at our tables. Sure enough, Jonah Jameson is now in place of John Smith. Now, word of warning and caution here. All right. So what do we know? If we run this query again, nothing will happen, right? In fact, I'm going to prove it to you. We're going to go to design view. I'm going to look for something of John Smith, but John Smith doesn't exist anymore. So if I go to my data sheet, I should see no records, and I don't. All right. Now, if I want to, oh boy, what happened? Okay. If I want to reverse what I just did, let me copy that one. All right, this here is meaningless. We're going to go to back to John Smith. Right? Right. And by the way, case would be important. Now, if I look here, what I will see here is certainly an entry because it found Jonah Jameson. If we run that again, we will see the change back to John Smith in our original table. And there we have it. Now, again, some forewarning on this is that once you update something once, you have to make a change to update it a second time. Otherwise, it won't find the record as you saw. If I go back to this again, since Jonah Jameson's gone, I won't see anything here. So what you need to concern yourself with is whether it's an append query, whether it's an update query, or even a make table query, or any query for that matter. If you're not seeing data in your datasheet view, you can't perform actions on that data. There's nothing to perform it on, right? So, such as here, you see I got 4 here, and I could append those back if I wanted to. It would probably, let's see what happens. It'll probably add another 4, and again, that's not what we want. And there you have it. And by the way, deleting these 4 deletes the auto ID, and you'll be now at the next number. The only way to stop that from happening again, compact and repair, and now the next one will not be, you had 10, 11, 12, 13. The next one will not be 14, it'll be 10. All right, so I think we're going to stop for here. So let's look at some takeaways here. We had the select query, which gave us data from a let's see, right, the select query gave us table from records or selected and displayed records from the database. The make table query, it make the query select records from the database and save them as a new table. We had the append query, make the query and add the records to an existing table. But again, you need to be very careful you don't add duplicate data because you can do it very easily. And finally, our update query, make the query update and the data and update the data, make the query and update the data in an existing table. Again, it's going to be clearer when we get into the actual programmatic functions of how you use these, how you control them. In other words, when I'm doing an update query, when I'm changing data, right, I'm having the user select a button to update the data, then make changes to it or cancel it. So if they're going to make changes, what happens is they're going to hit that button to update it. It's going to copy the data to a temp table. They're going to make changes to the data in the temp table, not the main table, but the temp table. Once they're satisfied with those changes, they either can cancel and delete the temp table data or go forward, run the update query, and update the data in the main table by reference of that primary key. And the same thing goes for append as well. I can, and it's a little bit easier, as I said, I can open up a temp table, I can start adding records to it, and either cancel and clear that temp table, or append those records to the main table. Now, a lot of times when you're importing data, the append query is what you will use, but it's really challenging when you import from something like Excel or a CSV or something of that nature. As you see here, the select query simply displays the data. The make table makes a table out of the data. Append appends the table to an existing table, and the update updates data that's in an existing table. Now, what the append, as I said, what the I'm sorry, not the append, but the update query will do is it'll look for that foreign key, it finds it, and it says, okay, make these new changes to the fields and make them the new data and save that, and it's done. Now, can you do that in multiples? I've done it. I've done it with VBA code. It can be done. But to me, you really have to be careful with that. It's more of a case of making sure that the changes are what you want. So you've got to always have a deliberate flow of events in your database application, right? And let me see, what else? Is that it? I think that about sums it up today. But what I will say is, so you've learned at this point, select, make table, and append and update. Oh, I know what I forgot. Let's look at the sequel for the things we haven't looked at. We know that the append is an update. I'd like to show you the sequel for the make table. All right. It does a select from, right? And so it's like your select statement. You're looking at all these fields, doing it from and you have your inner join, your whole your tables and your fields that are joined, and it's going to put them into table test. That's where it's going to make it. On the update side, let's see. All right, it's certainly an update. So you're going to update table authors. You're going to set the table authors field author equal to John Smith. All right, and you have a where statement, your first where statement. So you're setting the criteria, let's see, to John Smith. So we go back into that, right? You're setting this to John Smith, what you want to make the change. And where is the criteria? Where that is equal to J. Jonah Jameson, so, or Jonah Jameson. So in SQL view, in design view, right? This is what we're setting it to, and this is our where statement, right? Let's just see, you can't, on an update, you cannot group. I just wanted to let you see that too, but in any event, so, right, so select is a select, append is an insert, make table is a select with an into, and your update is your update. So you're updating a table, authors, you're setting values, right? You're setting the value of table authors, author to John Smith, where you find table authors, field author equals Jonah Jameson. All right. So that's what we have for today. And when we come back, yeah, we'll just keep that. When we come back, we're going to get into the delete query, the crosstab query, union and pass-through. Now, you see here from this presentation that you can only write a union or a pass-through in structured query language. Makes it very challenging. You really have to know SQL. The crosstab, on the other hand, we have one asterisk there, and that indicates it's like a pivot table. You're going to see you have rows. You can have many rows. You can have one value and I believe one column. When we get back, we'll finish this up. Like and subscribe wherever you are. Good evening, good morning, good day, good night. And please keep it here with me, the database guy, as we continue our journey.